SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
Discover Covington County Hospital's swing bed program, offering comprehensive care for patients transitioning from acute hospital care to home. With a focus on rehabilitation, we ensure a smooth journey back to your home environment. Choose Covington County Hospital, where your health care matters.
I'm Steve Azar, and I'm on the other side of the microphone, meaning I'm asking the questions this time, and oh, have mercy for the airwaves. I spent 20 years in Music City, wrote and made some hits, traveled the world, and then moved my family back to the birthplace of American music and where the magnolia trees prosper. And now every time I put my feet on Mississippi soil, when I'm off the road, well, I'm at peace. On this show, it's all about hearing the stories straight from the mouths of the friends I've made along the way, their journey to success. Heck, there might be someone on I don't even know, but you know how us Mississippi types are. We tend to take well to new company. In a Mississippi Minute, all 60 of them. I'm Steve Azar. It's just like that muddy river, moving slow. Ain't no worries, it's how life goes, baby. In a Mississippi Minute. That's right. Hey, folks, it's another In a Mississippi Minute. I didn't want to say time for another Mississippi Minute because I say that every time. I tried to shake it up a little bit, but that didn't make any sense. I'm going back to it. Speaking of, I am Steve Azar, by the way, and I really appreciate you guys tuning in, as always, on SuperTalk Mississippi. Grateful for being able to do this for into my 8th year. It's meant a whole lot. Learning to listen. It's a beautiful gift. Speaking of gifts, over there in Macon, Mississippi, when you want catfish produced in a way that is just spectacular to your taste buds, healthy, check my pals out at superiorcatfish.com. They do it right over there. Good folks, good folks. And visit Mississippi.org. The team over there has just done such a wonderful job over the years, luring people into our Mississippi, celebrating who we are, and then trying to figure out how to get them to leave because they won't ever leave. That's what I'm talking about. Plan a road trip with your loved one. Go to visitmississippi.org. All right. My pal today, Wesley Smith, has, well, how many times has he been on? I can't keep up. All I know is I get a lot of text messages, a lot of calls. When are you going to have Wesley back on? And I said, well, he'll come back on. I got to have other guests. But no, I love spending time with Wesley. We work together on a lot of projects down here. And so anytime I get a chance to talk music biz and the history and connect dots, how the world has been influenced by us, I'm getting Wesley on the horn, I can tell you. He's a tremendous storyteller. He's become one of those guys in Mississippi you can turn to get a lot of knowledge and history and culture about who we are. And he studies it. He loves it. He lives for it. It's on his walls at his office. Mississippi Tourism Association Executive Board and President. He's the Mississippi Delta Tourism Board, served 3 times as president, Mississippi Blues Foundation board member, the E.E. Bass Foundation executive board. He sat on there for a while. Greenville Arts Council executive board, Bridging the Blues, was a tremendous, you can use the word lure again for folks from all over the world when we put on festivals for 2 weeks. Started at the mighty Mississippi when we did that back in the day, and it finished at West Helena, Arkansas, at the Big Blues Festival, the King Biscuit there, and for 2 weeks, people would celebrate us from all over the world, and it was a great thing. Maybe one day we'll have it back. He also was a former producer of the International Blues Challenge and Blues Awards. He is one special guy, so we're going to dig deep into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class of 1986 and just touch on Mississippi's contribution there with my pal, Wesley Smith.
Good morning. How are you?
I got a cold, you can tell.
I can hear it a little bit in your voice. Can you hear me okay?
You sound a lot better than I do. You probably can sing better than me right now.
I don't know about that, but let's not try. Let's not see.
It's good to see you again. Good to have you on. And when you sent me this yesterday, I was like, oh, yeah, this is good. And you talked about connecting some Mississippi dots with the rest of the world of music. You can hear. You got Elvis, Jerry Lee, who finished living in Mississippi, right?
Right.
You've got, where's Sam Cooke?
Yep.
Who else on there? There's not a big list on here. The performers of the inaugural. So this is the inaugural one in 1986?
Yeah, when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was created, this was the inaugural class, first class in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it was 1986, not that long ago.
When I see Ahmet Ertegun's name up there, feel like I'm part of something. He used to get us to come up there. I kept thinking he was going to be the guy that signed me one day, and he ended up not being that guy, but a huge influence like we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
And so to see his name on the first one, it just puts things in perspective a little bit. I tell you, it's humbling.
When they name an award after you at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it says something. You know?
The point in my life, I was pretty intimidated by him, I can tell you. Pretty amazing. We're going to talk about the forefathers and the early influences. Two of these three that we're talking about are Mississippi lads, so let's dig in.
Yeah, so in the first class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they divided into kind of three ways to honor people. One's the early influences or influencers, the people that were right before, that were that direct connection that led to what we call rock and roll. And then, of course, the performers, and then the Ahmet Ertegun Award. And that's the folks that made it happen, not as a performer, but in other parts of the business that were just so important to making rock and roll happen. So, yeah, let's start with early influences. The first three award winners in that category were Jimmie Rodgers, Jimmy Yancey, and Robert Johnson. And as you pointed out, two of the three are from Mississippi. Jimmie Rodgers, the singing brakeman, great, probably the first country music star. Folks, go look up, you have an interest in this kind of thing, go look up the Bristol sessions. Jimmie Rodgers was there, and he had the Carter family famously was there. June Carter Cash's family, kind of the first family of country there at the beginning. But their roads crossed there, and that's a really famous time in country music history and music history in general. But Jimmy had this great country flavor, but he had been heavily influenced as a Mississippian by blues artists he had heard, and became kind of the biggest country star in the world. He, of course, famously worked on the railroad. They called him the singing brakeman. And then he went through a bout of health issues and got heavily into his music. But in his heyday, one of the most famous American musicians in the world. And then, of course, Robert Johnson, the king of the Delta Blues, influenced so many rock and roll artists to come, artists in a lot of genres, but especially rock, and especially the rock that would come in the 60s.
Can I ask you something? You think about how the word spread back in 1927 to 1933. I mean, it's not like it is today. So how do you become that big back then?
Well, Robert became bigger. I mean, Jimmy was on a lot of records, and think about the record industry was segregated like the rest of the country was during this time. So what the records he put out, they still call them race records then, but they were huge. There's a market for everything. It's just like we'll know about artists from the South, right, before they're famous, because we see them or hear them, word gets around. It was the same thing kind of back in that day. But Jimmy was putting out big records that were getting national notice. Robert's fame sort of grew as the years went on. Kind of we get into the 60s, and the college age kids kind of rediscovered the blues and folk music here in America. And then, of course, our British friends were enamored with it and making it their own, and then would bring it back to us kind of in the
all that was
form of another wave.
Yeah, bubbling up over there. We didn't even know.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then Jimmy Yancey was a great, he was from Chicago, Illinois. Well, I mean, the connections between Mississippi, especially Delta and Chicago, are well known. But Jimmy was a boogie-woogie barrel house piano player, very influential kind of in the 20s and 30s. And set that bedrock for that rhythm and blues kind of rollicking. Again, if you hear it, you can instantly know that that's going to lead us to rock and roll. So that was your early influencers. I mean, two of them were Mississippians, and the other heavily influenced by that Mississippi flavor in Chicago, and just the urban feel of Chicago. The other great barrel house players up there, you know.
You think about 1986 deciding who the class is going to be, right?
I mean, the first one had to be the hardest one to pick. You got everybody to pick.
And you go country, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you go boogie woogie, and then you go hardcore blues, which which says a lot about why we are the birthplace of America's music. Let's take a quick break. With my pal Wesley Smith, I'm intrigued even further, looking forward to delving in, always glowing when we see why we're the birthplace of America's music. This is a perfect example. Starts and stops with us. Be proud of your Mississippi. Go to visitmississippi.org. And Superior Catfish, there's catfish, there's Superior Catfish. I did the math again. It always adds up to the same thing. Produced right here in Mississippi. Please check out my pals at superiorcatfish.com. We're with Wesley Smith. We'll be right back.
Swimming with you. Oh, I'd rather be swimming with you, girl.
Listen and watch all your favorite SuperTalk Mississippi shows live and on demand. Listen to tons of music. Plus, get the latest breaking news from across the state with the SuperTalk Mississippi app. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Download the SuperTalk app on your iPhone or Android device now for free. Just search SuperTalk Mississippi in your app store on your mobile device to get everything Mississippi all in one place. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Get it now.
Live for a Mississippi Minute with a Mississippi brother. We grew up about 60 miles apart from each other. I was a little west of him. He was a little east of me, but on the same highway. Highway 82 have become dear, dear friends. We're like brothers. And it's been a wonderful adventure together, celebrating the arts and making things happen creatively down here and affecting the economy, which is it's just been a blast. We are doing what Texas, in our state of Mississippi now, what Texas has done for many years. And I'm loving being a part of that with Wesley and so many others that are taking the reins, and like Marty Stewart and the late great Marty Gamblin. We're going to miss him forever. I can tell you that. And so many people that have influenced us down here that keeps us moving the ball forward. All our museums, we're grateful for them. All the people that volunteer, that join boards, that help celebrate our arts. Man, I'm telling you, you're doing a big thing for drawing people to us. That's visitmississippi.org. Superior Catfish. Man, come on. Homegrown and produced right here in Mississippi. Great folks over there. I've been there a couple of times. I can't wait to go back. Every time it's a great meal, a great hang. Wesley Smith is my guest today, and we're digging into the first Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Two of the three, Jimmy Rogers, Robert Johnson from Mississippi, Jimmy Yancey from Chicago, Illinois. Obviously, we know there's a direct bead to us in Chicago, us in Detroit, us and Memphis, when it came to music. So, Wesley, we're going to continue on. So what is this non-performers thing I'm looking at?
Well, let's look at the non-performers. That's also the Ahmet Ertegun Award winners.
Right.
Ahmet was one of the co-founders of Atlantic Records, one of the just most famous record labels in the world. You've heard a million songs put out on
Sure.
that label. It's funny to me because they had three winners of the Ahmet Ertegun Award that year, and I don't know that they do three every year. They may have spread it out, but there were some huge people, and the people they name almost could have the three named winners that year were John Hammond, Alan Freed, and Sam Phillips. And just as easily, think about this, Steve, when you look at those names, it could have been the John Hammond Award or the Alan Freed Award or the Sam Phillips Award, and Ahmet could have won it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They were all so huge in what they did. But Ahmet founded Atlantic, and go look up when you have time all the artists that came through Atlantic, all the songs. John Hammond, and we've talked about him on here before, kind of his influence on, or more specifically being influenced by Mississippi. But John was a descendant of the direct descendant in the Vanderbilt family. So he grew up very well to do in New York City. Big society parties at his parents' home growing up. But he would go down. They'd have these big parties. He would go down to the kitchen, and the cooks and the people working at the house would be down there and have the radio on, and that's where he liked to be. He was listening to early blues and rhythm and blues records, and it changed his life. He grew up, and he was the face of Columbia Records, one of the biggest. I mean, even in our day, we probably still owe money on. You remember the
Columbia Record Club?
The Columbia Record. You could get 10 cassette tapes for $1 or whatever, but you had to
and then you had to continue to buy.
Right. Nobody did it. Nobody ever went on. You'd get a collection notice.
Hey, what's changed? Nobody buys anything anyway. It's all the same. We no wonder we're in this spot. Anyway, all right, don't get me started. But no, I love that because, obviously folks out there, Ahmet Ertegun, man, is crazy who he signed. You look at John Hammond and it was Dylan and Springsteen. Just the list goes. It's just crazy. It's those two guys were owning it. But then you dig into Sam Phillips, who was so far away from where they were here. They're in Florence, Alabama, in Muscle Shoals. Crazy what he did.
Yeah. Well, and Sam's from Florence. He famously moves to Memphis. He creates Sun Studios, Sun Records. And I mean, if you go back and listen to interviews with him or read biographies about him, I mean, he's very plain spoken about it. He was looking for a white artist to do what he thought of as black music, to take blues and rhythm and blues, but bring it to a wider white audience through a white performer. And one walked through his door.
Yeah, who was that?
The biggest one ever, also famously a Mississippian, the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley.
Do you think that he saw it immediately when Elvis walks in?
I think he knew pretty quickly, and I can't remember the exact story, but Elvis began playing one song with, he had paired him up with Scotty Moore and Bill Black, the bass player, and there was one particular song that caught his attention, and he thought, I think this may be what I'm looking for, But Sam, of course, was from Alabama, and we'll get into Elvis a little bit more when we get to the.
Yeah, let me just correct myself. I didn't mean Muscle Shoals when it came to Sam Phillips, but he's from Florence, but obviously had a direct bead there, but obviously took it to Memphis.
Very close.
Memphis. Yeah.
And that whole musical scene there, I'm sure. It was not what we think of as Muscle Shoals yet, but that was coming. But there was just a great musical
with Rick Hall and all those guys. Exactly.
Right. And then Alan Freed was the other winner, and Alan was a great disc jockey. He was from Pennsylvania originally, and he coined the term rock and roll. So in those days, the early R&B, which is not what we think of as R&B currently, but they called them rhythm and blues records. And at some point it kind of morphs into rock and roll, and there are arguments about when that happens and what the first rock and roll records were. But Alan was playing these records, and he coined the term rock and roll, and it caught on. And at the time he was in Cleveland. And that's actually why, when they were deciding where to build the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, kind of the two main choices were Cleveland because that's where the name was coined, and Memphis because of obviously Memphis's incredible musical background with the blues, country music, jazz, even if you dive really deep, especially the connection to the Mississippi River, country coming over from East Tennessee, and it's the collision of all these things that creates rock and roll. It is the collision of all these different cultures coming together.
I'm looking at the spell. Just look at rock and roll, right? And you see the way it's spelled, right, and the way it's delivered. And you're just going like, as a songwriter, you're thinking song titles and things that pop out, right, that are special. And I'm just going like, did it just fly out of his head? Was it thought of or thought out at all? Song titles come both ways, and it's just interesting. I would love to have been the fly on the wall when it came out of his mouth.
Right. What the thought process was. My guess is it just came out and stuck,
I would
without a lot of thought.
Yeah. Because the roll part, I mean, like, what is that? Like, it's the rock part, but what's the roll part?
Well, some people will tell you that that's a euphemism. It was often used in, I mean, even rock and roll was a term that had been used in blues songs, and it was a euphemism, sort of a bawdy euphemism. You know what I mean?
I got you. Okay, so we're talking. That's Sam. So Sam Phillips spends his time in Memphis, and he's looking for these acts, and obviously Elvis walks in. And I still would love to know if there's any footage, or there's nothing, right? There's nothing of, all you got is just hearsay or the story behind it of what that was like. Because, they talk about people having that it factor. So does he see Elvis walk in and go, please tell me this guy can sing and do something? But little did he know it was way beyond something. Just wondering what it looked like when he walked in and what he felt like.
It's funny because Sam was recording, before Elvis walks in, other people are. We've talked about Rufus Thomas on here, had the first hit on Sun Records, also another Mississippian, and how important that was, because if you're running a label, especially specifically an independent label, you got to have a hit and generate some money so you can reinvest and go find some more artists. Yeah. And his first hit maker was Mississippian, Rufus Thomas. But when we get into the performers here in just a second, 2 of the inaugural class of 86 came out of Sun Records.
Wow.
Amazing.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that in the break. Wesley Smith is my guest right now. Visit Mississippi.org. Rockin' and rollin'. That's what we're talking about. And Superior Catfish, my pals over there in Macon, Mississippi, doing it right. There's catfish. There's Superior Catfish. You can have it delivered right to your house, right to your store, wherever you are. Go to store.superiorscatfish.com, and it's coming to you. It's going to be delicious. I'm Steve Azar. We'll be right back.
Let me home. $20,000 available for first-time home buyers. Hey folks, Steve Azar here. Helping is the heart of our friends at Guarantee Bank. They offer programs like the Home Buyer Equity Leverage Partnership Grant that can assist qualified first-time home buyers with up to $20,000 towards down payment and provide home ownership counseling to empower you on your journey. These funds are first come, first served. Learn more about this program and to apply now, go to gbtonline.com. Guarantee Bank, member FDIC.
In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar. Right here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Live for a Mississippi Minute with my pal Wesley Smith. I won't beat around the bush. Superior Catfish is produced right here in Macon, Mississippi, over there by Hell State. They don't mess around. It's so good, so fluffy, so buttery, so tender. Check it out. Go to superiorcatfish.com. Is your mouth watering? Because mine is. And visit Mississippi.org. We're talking music again with my buddy Wesley Smith. Plan a road trip with your family. Celebrate your Mississippi. Head to all these wonderful music museums that we have scattered across Mississippi. It'll blow your mind. All right, Wesley, let's keep going because, this Mississippi Minute thing goes by fast.
Let's roll through them. I'm going to start with Little Richard. How's that sound?
Yeah, I love Little Richard. Let's roll. There he is.
We're going to roll through this is the inaugural, the class of 86 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, and this is the performers. Little Richard Penniman, young guy. Little Richard was from Georgia originally. Great piano player. He kind of fused some of that boogie woogie piano, some of that Jimmy Yancey feel, that early influence. He had that gospel influence. Again, he's R&B records. He's taking all these things And he puts them together, and it's kind of rock and roll. And I mean, just classics. Good Golly, Miss Molly, Tutti Frutti, these sort of seminal songs from that era that would go on to just influence so many people. He kind of famously got out. His star rose quickly, and in 1957, he had a vision of the apocalypse, believe it or not. He was very religious. He kind of went back and forth. He struggled with playing secular music versus playing church music. But he had a vision of the apocalypse, and he said, I'm getting out of this, devil's music, this rock and roll. He would be drawn back in the 60s when the British invasion comes, when the Beatles and the Stones and all these bands start coming over. They're playing his music, and that kind of pulls him back in. But I'm going to try to make a Mississippi connection with all of these. I know we got to rip through them. A hit for Little Richard, not one of his biggest ones, but a hit for Little Richard is a song called Greenwood, Mississippi. So look that up if you never heard it. There was a college band, I don't remember which one, when I was at Ole Miss that did a cover of it and kind of had a college band hit with it. But I can't remember the name of the band. But look that up. Of course, Richard played all over Mississippi, but just a phenomenal performer. He's one of a kind. All of these people on this list they are so singular in what they do, if you know their music and style and personality. Let's shoot over to Elvis, the king of rock and roll. How about that?
Come on. Again,
came through Sun Records, Sam Phillips, who went in this year too, as an Ahmet Ertegun Award winner. Elvis from Tupelo, Mississippi. I mean, we're on a Mississippi radio show. I don't know what I can tell people about Elvis. If you don't know about Elvis Presley and you're from Mississippi, you need to get on it. Influence everything. John Lennon once said, if there had been no Elvis, there would be no Beatles, and that's the truth. He also sort of created the rock and roll lifestyle that we think of. You don't see that quite as much anymore. Maybe we're just so used to it. But that persona of being a rock star and what that meant and how you acted, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Elvis, again, totally influenced by the gospel music, the church music of his youth, and the blues.
The blues that were haunting him all around him is incredible. And I mean, haunting in a good way.
That's right.
He was so inspired by both sides of it. Just incredible. I think about looking at Elvis's hair, and I'm looking at all the artists' hair. They all have hair. You can get away with not having hair anymore, but I'm glad I have hair, except when you have to dry it. I mean, my hair grows like it did when I was 12.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you think about that was probably part of the recipe back in the day.
Well, it was. And look, think about right as rock and roll's beginning is when we're really getting TV. And so
sorry, all you guys out there that are, having like Wesley who shaved their head.
That's right.
Well, trust me.
I had a glorious mane of hair at one point in my life.
Yeah, well, you guys got it. Y'all got it made. I don't. I have to work hard. I have to have product, and never mind. Let's forget it. All right.
That's right.
So keep going. I'm sorry.
Well, let's go to Jerry Lee Lewis. You brought it up earlier. We were lucky enough to be present in the room when he was. We cut the ribbon, so to speak, with him at his home for his Mississippi Country Blues Trail marker. I'm sorry. And of course, he passed away a few years ago. But Jerry Lee was from Louisiana, comes up to Memphis, walks in, Sam Phillips records him. He blows up. Whole lot of shaking going on, Great Balls of Fire.
Wow.
Just huge, huge hits.
I'm looking at Ricky Nelson up here, and I knew the Nelson twins in Nashville.
Yeah, they're his sons.
Yeah, they were good guys. They were really good guys, and spent some time a little bit with them, but interesting to see him up there and how he had huge success.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he was kind of that next generation following these guys. Jerry Lee, my daughter now is 14 when she was about 10. Actually, she went with me that day. You remember we brought her to the Country Music Trail market for Jerry Lee. But her favorite story about Jerry Lee is when he famously was on a bill playing a rock and roll show somewhere. And I think it's illustrated in the movie Great Balls of Fire, but he and Chuck Berry were arguing over who got to go last, who got top billing. And Chuck had whatever hit he had on the charts at that moment was higher than Jerry's, and the show organizer said Chuck goes last. And Jerry Lee Lewis went out on stage and played a whole lot of shaking, and he ended with Great Balls of Fire and set the piano on fire.
And they said, follow that.
just banging on it. Walks back up and tells Chuck Berry, follow that.
Yeah. That's when you want to, by the way, it's a fact that the slot, but when you're doing a big show and there's multiple acts, the slot before the closing act is the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's
known
right.
fact with us in the industry.
Everybody's not tired yet. Jerry Lee's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in the Country Hall of Fame now, too. And, of course, later in his career, he kind of turned more towards some of his country roots and kind of lived on the country charts for a lot of years. But one of the greatest rock and rollers ever.
Wow.
Louisiana boy. Let's go to Buddy Holly in the inaugural class.
Yeah, my brother managed the Crickets for a number of years. He co-managed them.
That is unbelievable.
Brother Joe, yeah, for a number of years. Sure did.
Buddy's one of those ones that we were robbed, that you really would have loved to have seen what happened with him as his career. He put out so much incredible music in such a short time. And maybe he would have burned out. Maybe he had this super creative time period, but he seems like one of those guys that would have lasted. But Buddy was from Lubbock, Texas, and he was playing around, playing skating rinks and teen clubs or whatever. And he actually opened for Elvis one time, I think, but before any of them were really well known. And but 1957 is kind of when things started to break for him. Of course, his band you mentioned is called the Crickets, but they recorded "That'll Be the Day" and kind of did it. They had recorded it before, but more of a country flavor, and he did a little more rock and roll, and it caught on. And he was from there. So think about that. That's 1957. He died in 1959.
I know. And
how many hits he had? Oh
my gosh! And J.I. or either Sonny, one of them wrote the Mary Tyler Moore theme song.
Oh wow!
From the Crickets. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Of course, Buddy famously died in the plane crash.
Yeah.
We know now. We call it the day the music died from the song American Pie. He and the Big Bopper and Richie Valens. But massive influence on what was to come. One of the Stones kind of early songs that were famous for doing was it was one of Buddy Holly's songs. Tell me, Steve, I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, you talking about That'll Be
not Fade Away? Not Fade Away.
One
of Buddy's songs they made famous.
Yeah.
They did a bunch of.
We're gonna run out of time because my brain's not moving right now. It's not moving.
We're doing it too early. More coffee. All right, so there's Buddy, Texas. I'm gonna roll through. I know we're pressed for time. Probably trying to get to.
Well, let's take a quick break, and we're gonna have that last 8 minutes. Folks, Wesley Smith is my guest today. We're talking Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the very beginning of it all. We're touching on Mississippi, of course, in a big way because you can't do it without doing it. Go to my pals over there, Superior Catfish. They touch on Mississippi all the time, and they spread their love. Check out SuperiorCatfish.com and visit Mississippi.org. Hey, look, they're smiling right now. I'm Steve Azar. We'll be right back with my pal, Wesley Smith. Don't go nowhere. You're on SuperTalk Mississippi. $20,000 available for first-time home buyers. Hey folks, Steve Azar here. Helping is the heart of our friends at Guarantee Bank. They offer programs like the Home Buyer Equity Leverage Partnership Grant that can assist qualified first-time home buyers with up to $20,000 towards down payment and provide home ownership counseling to empower you on your journey. These funds are first come, first served. Learn more about this program and to apply now, go to gbtonline.com. Guarantee Bank, member FDIC.
Listen and watch all your favorite SuperTalk Mississippi shows live and on demand. Listen to tons of music. Plus, get the latest breaking news from across the state with the SuperTalk Mississippi app. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Download the SuperTalk app on your iPhone or Android device now for free. Just search SuperTalk Mississippi in your app store on your mobile device to get everything Mississippi all in one place. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Get it now.
Why choose a sleep?
We got a little time left to talk Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the beginning with my buddy Wesley Smith. He knows it better than anyone. Superior Catfish knows catfish better than anyone. Please check my pals out over there in Macon, Mississippi. That's where you want to get it from. Go to superiorcatfish.com. It's delicious. And visit Mississippi.org. Let's rock and roll. That's what we're talking about. Wesley, so we've dug pretty deep, and I'm looking at the Everly brothers. We just got through. Have I gone too far? Buddy Holly.
No, you're good.
Yeah, the Everly brothers.
Let's talk about the Everlys. The Everly brothers were born in Kentucky. Came from a musical family. Their mom and dad had kind of a country and western act, so they grew up in it. Incredible harmonies between these two. That's probably what stands out.
I feel like we're sprinting right now, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're trying to get the whole class in our time limit, but we are going fast. Their first big hit was Bye Bye Love. Again, I know people remember that. I won't sing it, and Steve's got a little head cold, so I can't make him sing today.
Yeah.
Released in 1957, reached number 2 on the charts, and then they followed that up with Wake Up Little Susie, All I Have to Do Is Dream. When Will I Be Loved was a big hit.
Oh, my goodness.
Linda Ronstadt later redid it, had a monster hit with it. And they, as they got bigger, they were just a huge, they were one of those groups that musicians will tell you, maybe even more than the general public, kind of how much they influenced them. Everybody from the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, I mentioned Linda Ronstadt covered their material. And on their first tour of Britain, the opening band that played with them, played with the Everly Brothers all over, opened for them, was the Rolling Stones.
Come on.
That's the Everlys, all right? Kentucky. I'm going to roll over to Fats Domino, the great New Orleans piano player. About 1955, he has his first hit, Ain't That a Shame? And he just follows them up one after another. I'm Walking. And it's really that New Orleans flavor. It's funny, you get to where you can listen to things and you kind of know where they were recorded. Most things you can listen to, and if it's recorded at Muscle Shoals, you can pick it out by ear. But Fats was huge, Blueberry Hill, Whole Lot of Lovin', just hit after hit. One of the things I remember about Fats is I remember going down to Jazz Fest and seeing him play, but when Katrina happened, he lived his whole life down in the 9th Ward. Mm-hmm. And when Katrina happened, his house flooded. And Fats was actually one of the folks rescued with the Coast Guard helicopters. They pulled him off his roof. Isn't that amazing? Took him.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. They took him to Baton Rouge. He was older, had some health issues, but they made sure he was okay. And it's just chaos. There's not enough room for everybody. Well, his granddaughter, was good friends with, the LSU quarterback at the time. And he ends up, going and staying with him at his apartment for a couple of days.
Oh, come on.
I'm drawing a blank on the,
that's crazy.
Jamarcus Russell. He was drafted number 1 by the Raiders.
Yeah.
All SEC that year. He kind of helped Fats out. I always loved that story too.
That's insane.
2 Louisiana boys,
Wow.
That's Fats. Let's go to Sam Cooke. Sam.
Come on with it.
A Mississippian. Now, Sam comes he's from Clarksdale. And we always associate Clarksdale with blues, as we should, but Sam comes out of the church. I mean, he's coming out of church music and gospel music, made his first hits with a gospel group called the Soul Stirrers, and goes single. And he went and asked his father. His father was a minister, a Baptist minister, and had a talk with him about it. And his dad gave him his approval to sing secular music. And even his secular music, a lot of the melodies came out of the gospel world. But you can tell he was not trying to, at least lyrically, trying to rock that. He wasn't singing things that were double entendre or body.
Yeah.
Beautiful pop music with a gospel feel. Sam was amazing. You can go listen to his records today.
Well, come on. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Sam Cooke is ridiculous. Then you got BB, of course.
Yes, yeah. Well, BB would come. BB was the nominee in year one.
Yeah,
and there were a lot of nominees. We didn't come out. Let's go over to Ray Charles. Ray was in the first class. Ray was from Albany, Georgia. A lot of folks have seen the movie about his life, know his background. He had a hard upbringing. Lost his sight to glaucoma as a boy, but just a gift. I mean, a gift he was given musically. I'll give you a little something I didn't know till I started digging around. Ray was down in New Orleans at one point and was doing some producing, and he produced a record by a blues artist named Guitar Slim. And Guitar Slim was one of the early sort of big blues stars. I've seen BB talk about Guitar Slim and what an influence he was on him. But Guitar Slim recorded a song called The Things That I Used to Do, and it was a massive hit in the blues world. Guitar Slim, his real name is Eddie Jones. He was from Greenwood, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And Ray Charles ends up producing and playing piano on The Things I Used to Do. That was in 1953, massive hit for him. There's a good connection to Mississippi with Ray.
All right, Wesley Smith, folks. That's my pal. He breaks it down for you like nobody else. Thank you, Wesley. Superior Catfish, homegrown and produced right here in Mississippi. And visit Mississippi.org. Our clock has expired. I love you guys. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. I'm Steve Azar.
I'm Steve Azar. In a Mississippi Minute, all 60 of them, where you can take your sweet time.
Listen and watch all your favorite SuperTalk Mississippi shows live and on demand. Listen to tons of music. Plus, get the latest breaking news from across the state with the SuperTalk Mississippi app. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Download the SuperTalk app on your iPhone or Android device now for free. Just search SuperTalk Mississippi in your app store on your mobile device to get everything Mississippi all in one place. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Get it now. A SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.